Hey everybody, what's going on? Kent Clothier here. Welcome to another episode of the Time Is Now podcast. Glad you guys have made it. I have a really, really special episode for you here today. Two people that are near and dear to my heart, people that have absolutely inspired me over the last few years that we've known each other as I've watched them just come into the real estate investing space, specifically completely green, but with a wealth of knowledge from their past industries, and walked in here and have quickly started to make their dreams come true and started to change the game in their own market, and quite frankly made a believer out of a lot of people in an industry where it's easy to surround yourself with people that just aren't believers, right? A lot of skeptics, a lot of people thinking that it can't happen. It's always inspiring to be around people that don't have that attitude, that come in very positive with a plan and then execute that plan to fruition. And then when you sit back and watch and say, man, I mean, that's exactly how it should be done. These are two people that have absolutely done this. Aaron Pimpus and Ashley Grypak, welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks for joining me. I want to kind of just dive into it if we can. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great.
Well, let's start with kind of your story a little bit, man. Tell everybody a little bit about your background, how this all kind of came about, why you kind of came into this industry, kind of, a little bit of the background, if you will.
Yeah, so we both kind of come from the corporate world. So I was working, we're both in medical software sales. We worked at the same company, then Ashley kind of worked for a different company. I was more on the private equity side. Ashley worked for publicly traded companies. So again, we're both doing really well running teams. But it's one of those things, the higher, you get promoted, I was a VP of sales, Ashley was a VP as well. The more you lose of your life, we're traveling nonstop, you get to see your kids less and less. So we saw that trajectory, right, where we have other seniors that were like 50 years old, et cetera, still working the conference floor, like just kind of shooting shit. And we're like, we don't want any of that. So we decided to kind of pull the plug, and because we saw the end result and it was not cool. Like, you just kind of grow up and, you're disconnected from your family, et cetera. So we decided to pivot to real estate. Obviously, it makes sense. I had a little bit of mortgage experience prior to that, but it was the industry that was the most compelling. There could be a potentially low barrier of entry through wholesaling, and we just kind of pulled the plug one day. Ashley came on board first, and then I quit my job last April, so April of 2018. And then we're heads down.
Yeah, we definitely burned the boats. There was no looking back, which was scary at first, but it's probably one of the reasons why we're so successful is that we don't have any regrets. We're not looking back to what was our previous lives, and we are full steam ahead.
I love that.
Yeah, and we quit our jobs. I mean, we're well over $500K a year combined. So it wasn't like, one of those jobs that's like, 100,000 will replace it real quick. So there's a lot of thought that went into that. But, in the end, it's the same result, same answer.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second, because there are, assuming that you were talking to somebody right now, right, that is in a very similar situation. They are a power couple, combined, dual income home, making a shit ton of money. But they are, as you clearly laid out, they are not fulfilled, right? They can clearly see that this isn't where they want to end up. The money's cool, but everything else would be a lot cooler. Talk to me about that conversation, one, that you guys had, and then two, what is the advice you would give to that person? Because they're definitely listening right now, right? They are definitely going to hear this, and they're definitely going to want to know, how the hell do you make that make sense in any way to where you effectively, like you said, Ash, burn the boats?
I think so much of it has to do with confidence and belief in yourself, that you can do what you do in sales. So we come from a sales background. As long as you can sell anything. And for us, this was just another commodity, right? We're now just from medical software. We're now in real estate. So we knew we're confident in our ability to sell that. So when we actually took the plunge, I called him. I was at a conference that we're talking about. I hated it. Everything was going well. We were making, again, a lot of money. So it wasn't a money question. Traveling was nice because you get to go to a lot of great places, but it wasn't traveling for the right reasons. And that has to do with quality of life. So I called Aaron one day, and I was out on the road. I said, hey, listen, I think it's time. And the next day, that was it. I put in my resignation, and we never looked back from there. And then Aaron, God love him, quit way faster than I thought he was going to. They're together. We both jumped in with both feet. And it's really just about believing in yourself and knowing that no matter what, as long as you put in the right amount of effort, and you learn. So obviously mentors is huge. You know, having people like Boardroom really just expedites your success, which is awesome. That really has helped us along the way. But you just got to put in the time. We realized that we were spending all this time and energy for somebody else's value and benefit, working for somebody else. As long as we took all that time and energy that we had and spent it on our own business, we'd get those same results and grow faster this way, rather than doing something, you know, half-ass, an hour here, an hour there.
I think people need to evaluate the trajectory of their life, what they're doing, how it's impacting their family, and how happy they are. Because it's easy to see where you are now and where you're going to be in 5 or 7 years from now. And if it looks like a bleak picture, which was for us, and there's a lot of details we're not filling in, right? You have to be smart about it. We had enough saved up, right, to transition. You kind of have to put the cliffs as close as possible, add some stock options, stuff like that. So we narrow the gap as much as possible before you jump. Like, obviously, there has to be some intelligence decision making. But in the end, like, look, I looked at the trajectory where we're going, and we saw, like, you know, it's easy. We have, like, you know, senior vice presidents, like, what they're going to be. And one day I'm like, we're done. Like, I don't want anything to do with that.
What did you hate about that trajectory? I mean, when you saw that, what did you not want about, what was it that you did not want?
Well, one, you have no ownership, right? So as you know, as part of the executive team, so I had some stock, you know, the private equity company that we're a part of. So that's one. Two, you're not running your own show. There's always, like, one of the reasons that I really hated the corporate world is because there's always the toxic politics, and it just creates toxic cultures for the most part. And it didn't feel right. But the second aspect is that you're looking at where you're going to be. And if, let's say, I went to the next position, which was SVP of sales or CRO, right? You know how much more you're taking on, how much more of your time you're selling for. Let's say I would have been at, you know, $500-600K a year, like, on my own. But how much are you selling in return, right?
Right.
Of your family, of your life.
Yeah, most of the people, we looked around and we saw who they were becoming, and it wasn't people we wanted to be. I mean, from what I saw, most people ended up divorced. Their kids didn't want to have anything to do with them.
I think that's really powerful.
Lonely, sad, depressed lives, and it was their own choice. They traded that, and you don't have to trade, you know, your sanity or your dreams for these terrible positions. People are just too afraid to take the risks and the chances themselves and believe in themselves, which is, you know, there's so much knowledge and education available to everybody. It's just go out there and look. Aaron always kicks me, even this morning, saying, just get out there and get on Google. It's all there.
Seriously, right? I mean, the insight isn't there, but the information is absolutely there to give you the confidence to know that, hey, there is a path.
Right. And the other thing is taking inventory of your skill set, right? We had, so software sales, right? Software medical sales, like electronic medical records. We basically did sales, we did the marketing, I talked to product, we talked to development. So we got into the full cycle. But I think people, they always forget to take inventory of their skills, right? They get so immersed in the hamster wheel, and this is what I do, this is the only thing I can do. People need to evaluate, like, we're doing it for 7-8 years, right? Medical software sales. If you stand back and you evaluate your skills and your inventory, right? Of, like, holy shit, like, I got something, right? So that's kind of what we did. We took a look, and I'm like, look, dude, if we swap out one widget for the other, like, I can sell whatever, right? And market at the same time. But it could be a different skill set for somebody else. They might be better at rehabs. They might be better at this. But if people really stand back and get themselves out of the W-2 mentality and be like, what have I acquired over the last 5, 10, 15 years? That's the part that builds confidence. And that's the part that helped us to transition, because I'm like, look, we're cashing in what we have, right? All these skills that we acquired from working with these high-level CEOs and this, like, $10 billion company that will own the company that I was a part of.
And to fail forward, you know, for us, we got in there, and while we did have mentors and opportunities to learn, there was a lot of just get in there and do it. You don't have to be perfect at anything. You have to at least just get out there and do it. Take action was such a big thing for everybody. You know, people spend so much time just thinking about it, considering their options, thinking, and they don't do anything. One
of the reasons why, so we were at Flip and Find last year. I think it was in March. Find and Flip. Sorry. Last year, and I didn't quit my job yet. I quit April, right? So it was like a month after. But that moment we're there, and the information acquisition, right? And we're just pretty quick on making decisions. And we're sitting right behind, well, at least I am. Ashley's not. This is why it works. But we're sitting behind some boardroom people, right? And talking to them, and I'm like, wait a minute, we have access to this information. That saves a year's plus worth of just, grinding on your own, going to buying little seminars, right, or buying little courses, you have access to that kind of information. So on the spot, right then and there, we signed up. We just threw it on the Amex. We'll take care of it later on, right?
Right.
That's where we made a decision. And at that point, we knew we had direct access to the information, all the people that are in Boardroom. And that made the transition that much easier. Like, I didn't have to be like, when I quit, I'm like, all right, what do we do now? Like, I'm pretty committed to that. And it helped with, the confidence of transitioning and the fact that we had people there to help us.
Yeah, truly, Boardroom was a big part of that stepping stone for us, and having access to not just information, but people. And the forum that you've created has just been huge. And I mean that genuinely, because the ability to talk to people and vet ideas and suggestions, what have you learned from, and so I don't have to make every mistake myself, because I make a lot of mistakes. But it's nice to not have to make them all yourself, and to get that just an edge.
Yeah, no, I alluded to it when we talked, when I was doing the intro to you, but one of the things from my perspective, because clearly we see a lot of people come through, whether it's through our software, through our training, or ultimately through our Boardroom. And there's a huge component to it is that you get out of it what you put into it. And one thing I can definitely tip my hat to you guys on is that when you guys came in there, you were ready, right? You came in there ready to immerse yourself. You had a plan. There was not going to get it. You didn't have all the answers, but you were ready to receive the information, and you were going to immerse yourself and you weren't walking out of there without it. And then equally that when you would come back, the execution on what had been promised before was a massive, component to that, which I think is, again, my hat's off to you guys, because coming into Boardroom for the sake of coming into Boardroom, is nothing but just effectively another seminar, right? I mean, you're going to learn a lot of stuff, but if you don't go back and execute, nobody gives a shit. And
you're keeping people accountable, Ken. So that's true. Really good. So what happened to the shit that you talked about last time? Like, it's like I don't want to go through that again. I remember doing our KPIs like 5 o'clock in the morning on day of. I'm like, dude, Kent's gonna have her ass.
But you guys, I mean, again, you guys had your shit largely together, and you always came off having a plan. Which, you know what? I'll also say this about you guys. Even if, because I think this is an important lesson that everybody should learn, is that even if you didn't have your shit together, we felt like you did, which means that confidence that you were just talking about, Ash, and you, Aaron. I mean, a lot of it. You've heard me say this before. Many times, it's about context and not content, right? It is about, hey, everybody is drawn to that confidence. It's amazing, what will happen to your business when people just believe that one way or another you're going to figure it out, right? And now you guys, what's the current situation of the business now? I mean, you guys have you walked away a little over a year, Aaron. Ashley, when did you officially jump in?
Just a couple months before him.
All right, so you guys have effectively been over in a little over a year, right? So talk to me about what the first year will look like, and what's the second year going to look like.
Yeah. So, and it's funny that, everything seems like, really easy, and people talk about these things like, webinars or whatever, where they're like, well, yeah, we did this and that, but there's a lot of things go wrong in a very major way. So we ended up with, we hired people, wrong kind of people, marketing. I didn't know what a farmer was. I don't understand how, where does what go in here? I still probably don't. I don't know how to read that.
Oh my God.
Somebody else do that.
Me.
So we ended up, and again, it's staying in your lanes and your strengths and weaknesses, right? We have our kind of duties divided in a pretty concise manner for the most part. I kind of do a lot of the, the higher items, bigger scale dispositions plus marketing. Actually focuses on acquisitions, and still being like a COO. So we ended up last year over year for April, I think we're at 1.3 total for the year. I think we're right around 9 people currently. But that involved, I think, for the most part, 85% wholesaling, 15% of your rehabs. We got rid of rehabs completely.
We went through it quick, though. I mean, we went from rehabbing to wholetailing to retailing, MLS. We did everything you possibly could. Now we're trending into creative financing. We've gone through so many disposition models to understand as much as we can about the marketplace and adapt as quickly as we can, because that's part of it, is that we jumped in and we had to learn as fast as we could so that we could keep being successful and not just be stagnant, not just say, hey, we're a wholesaler, hey, we're a rehabber. It was, let's understand as much as we can about everything we can so we can make a really well-informed decision on what's the best return on our investment.
Yeah, no, you guys did compress time like very few people have. And you guys had a 5-year run inside of a year, for sure.
We tried, I think, every single marketing source that's out there in those 5 years. So I'm sorry, no, 1 year.
Everything in 1 year.
We've seen pay-per-click direct, pay-per-click direct, SEO, Facebook, RVM, cold calling, TV, texting, right? Yeah. All of it. So it was ebbs and flows, but one of the biggest takeaways from Boardroom is that, and again, the accountability aspect, like you have your KPIs, like you're going to get your ass handed to you by
the way, 10. Thank you. That is all you. Your insistence on KPIs. I get just drilled all the time about what are the KPIs. I'm like, all right, Kent, that's all coming from you.
We could see, we can see when pay-per-click was dipping in terms of just, not converting, right? We saw cost per deal coming up. You see the trajectory. I mean, it's the stupidest spreadsheet will do. People overcomplicate KPIs. It's like, where's this magical, spreadsheet, or give me something that's fancy. Like, dude, you need like 5 things, put it in Excel. That's it. It's as simple as that. But being able to really identify when was direct mail not performing, when pay-per-click in our market example was going through the roof, like when everybody was on it, like by the end of last year, beginning of this year, and making those pivots probably saved us a lot of heartache. But looking at your lagging and leading indicators and, taking a lot of chapters from good to great, one of those things is one of the reasons why we're able to pivot on the spot, sometimes too quickly, because sometimes I'll rip the shit out real quick. I'm like, it's underperforming. She's like, it's not enough time. I can tell. But it helped us to make those decisions, pivot to higher converting marketing channels.
Yeah, we revisit some of those conversations.
Yeah, that's out.
All right, so that's actually good. Now you guys brought it up, so I'm going to take it there for a second. So,
okay.
It's not always easy. In fact, I would say it's rarely easy to have, when you're a couple, to be in business together, right? And so,
especially
ask me how I know this, because I know all too well. But I mean, how do you guys do it? How have you, is this the first real time that you guys have had to work together inside of something like this? And then how are you laying this out and making it work for you? What are the rules? How does it happen? Because think about it. How many, you've been in the boardroom, how many couples do you see walk in there? And this is actually something that people struggle with, right? Whether it's husband and wife teams, whether it's just couples, whether it's brother and sister, it doesn't matter. Anytime family is involved and or friends, meaningful relationships, that's a little hairy situation there.
Yeah.
So it's funny because we used to work together and we could not work together.
We couldn't communicate. Actually, we could not talk to each other. I'm just like this and walk away.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, and I do mean a long way.
How do you guys make it work? What are the rules? How does it happen? Or are there rules? Or are you guys figuring it out on the fly?
It's a lot of arguing that leads to, it's tough. It's tough, no bullshit. So it's tough, but I think identifying roles, we're doing the same stuff, because we're trying to both be CEOs at a certain time, trying to be both CEOs. It doesn't work that way. So identifying, sometimes me as a transaction director or something like that, where I'm kind of double checking what's going on with dispositions, I have to roll up to her. In other ways, she rolls up to me. So you kind of have to understand who's doing what, but at the same time, try to decouple that as much as possible. It's one of the best things we could do. You're still going to have tit for tat, that type of thing. But we do try to, we see when it's coming up. Today was a perfect example. We see it's we're going down the wrong conversation path. This is never has ended up well. And then you kind of have to just pivot back to just focus on the business. And it's would 2 business partners talk to each other like this? No, that would never happen. You're my business partners. I wouldn't talk to you that way. So you kind of have to just go back and laser focus on what's the issue instead of trying to well, I got you here, you got me there. But having the roles identified has been one of the most important things as a takeaway for making sure that we're successful and staying in our own lanes for the most part. Again, there's obviously little flare-ups here.
And we found that if you're doing what you love, and we do love different things about the job and about the business, as long as you're doing what you love, you tend to want to stay in that lane. So we don't step on each other's toes quite as much because we do love different things about the business, which is sometimes we have to remember we're working towards the same goal, but we each love different things about it. I love the details. He loves setting the vision. And as long as we stick to that, we're great.
Yeah, but it's also identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And I think we recently got to that where you have to be very real with yourself. Like, I suck at details or a certain part of execution, right? I can take it 25% there. That's the 25% of the vision, right? But the rest of it, I'm just not good at it. But the sooner you come to terms with yourself and stop thinking you're the shit and I can do everything on my own, which for me is a big one. That was a big
one. It's not for me either. I'm going to tell you, it's super easy for me to handle that.
Yeah, easy going guy, dude. You're such an easy going guy. But just being real with yourself helps to take away a lot of unnecessary conversations, a lot of necessary headaches, you know.
Yeah, and I will tell you, it only gets easier with time, right? All that self-realization, like you're talking about, all the communication skills, kind of knowing when to back off. I mean, that's a really healthy way to approach it. You know, understanding the roles, understanding that you're all trying to get to the same place, understanding that, you know, that there's no point in going round and round and round and ending up in the exact same place, right? At the end of the day, you're going to go home together, and this one can't go. You know, you ain't taking this home with you, right? So you might as well act like you said, like business partners. This is what really matters inside of the business, because there's not, I can tell you, you guys have an amazing dynamic. You guys are extremely fortunate. I know you know this, but the fact that the two of you are not passionate about the same thing, and you are professionals, and you both are very driven. You know, this is a massive asset to you guys, right? And there's plenty of people out there that would love to have a business partner sitting right next to them that was just as passionate about the business, if not more, and likes different things about the business. And also that person, without doubt, always have my back. I mean, think about if you're out there solo and you're trying to do this. I mean, you guys sound like a dream to them, right? I mean, so it's a big deal. It's a huge asset. And I think that it's certainly a huge part of your success. And so I applaud you for being able to kind of navigate that and understand kind of how to get through it as quickly as possible, just like you've done in every other area of your business, right? If you guys were looking back over the last year and a half or so, what are the things you can point to that say, okay, this, you've heard me say this before, like this was a dot, that was a dot, this mattered, that mattered. Point out some things for me in your journey that you would share with everybody that said, these are the things, starting with Ashley, you deciding that you were going to walk away first, right? Obviously that's a huge dot. That's a life-changing dot right there, right? And then kind of take me up. What are the dots that you guys can clearly see that these things, these decisions matter?
Yeah, for me, it was really more about consistently meeting, like, as in the ELT, we call it ELT, Executive Leadership Team, which is, her and I, if there's more, maybe our Director of Operations. But it's consistently meeting and consistently, everybody's familiar with the VTO model, right? But kind of following that a little bit closer, like we're doing now, so our Monday meeting, we have an agenda, with Ashley and I, and we're very specific, between marketing, updates, what's going on. Sticking to that avoids a lot of blunders and confusion, but getting organized faster to the point where we're able to we talked about leading and lagging indicators. I think it's just a KPI of the business, having structure and meeting regularly and identifying where the shit's going wrong, because it may be going wrong for a month and a half or two until it really goes wrong. And you're like, well, I kind of knew it was happening, but because you think you're too busy to sit down for freaking 15 or 20 minutes to meet on a Monday morning and just to hash those things out, causes a lot of unnecessary delays in pivoting.
Yeah, so I would say, maybe to answer your question a little bit more directly, for us was me leaving first, and then him being from my perspective, I saw that you truly believed in what we were going to do, and you didn't want me to do it without you, and you jumped fast. And so you came on, and then now that you were 100% invested in it, there was, we will succeed, period. There's no, we're not going to die trying. That was a huge milestone for me to see you come, you're that as bought in as I was. then we had milestones where we got an office, and that was for me meaning that now we have true overhead, not just whatever expenses we were going to float. From there, it was hires. Our next big thing was to realize that in order to be successful, you can't have the mentality of do it all yourself. So we looked to hire people right away, which was our mentality really was, with the exception of as much as we could take away from like Boardroom and masterminds and stuff like that, was to do it all myself first, at least a few times, and then teach someone else how to do it so that I wasn't always doing that same task. Aaron has been really instrumental in saying, is that something you can delegate? Is that something that you have to do personally, or can you teach somebody? So from there, we went to our key hires. We went to sales first, getting a sales team in because they could bring in revenue, which would enable us to bring in higher up people in the organization. And then we went into more of a director positions, and then we kept expanding. We went from department to department, and we started building what we now consider a real company with a real team. And since then, we've now moved into a bigger office and a nicer place, and very happy and fortunate that we've gotten this far in, again, a short period of time. But those were some of our biggest takeaways that I saw as far as connecting the dots, truly the team. And
these were not perfect hires. I think we went through, like, we're at 8 or 9 people now, but through that time, we went through probably 6 or 7 that just, it didn't work out. It was a massive failure, a massive mistake on our end. I hired somebody that was just, didn't make sense. Ashley hired somebody, but then we obviously, it's a unified decision, kind of came down to that. You know, employing things like disc test, employing things that give you more certainty in terms of like, okay, we have a certain percentage that we know this person fits on these levels, will never be guaranteed. But that's what, like, you know, that's the thing that most people don't talk about. Everybody gets on, you know, shows, etc. They're like, yo, we were killing it, this and that. And we miserably failed in hiring, right? I mean, you have to, I think it's, if you don't have that dialed in, like, you're going to fail with marketing, you're going to fail with hires. Like, if you don't have that acceptance and then you beat yourself up over like, what's going on, my business is going down, like, dude, that's just part of the growth. Like, you have to have that built into your head. Otherwise, you're literally going to be like beating yourself up. Like, why is this not working out? And playing the victim card, right? It's just, you have to kind of have that approach with any entrepreneurship.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
The whole traction model, Aaron mentioned it earlier, but having a system, that kind of like a path to follow. Traction is something that we both have read and both believed in, that model. And that's what Aaron was mentioning about how we're able to stay on track with an agenda and a map and rocks.
And also culture, right? Our sales guys, you know, disposition sales as well. I mean, they come here on Saturdays on their own. Like, we don't ask them to come here. They were here when we showed up. Like, what are you guys doing here, right? They're just hanging out, making calls, you know, working on deals. But, you know, having that consistent, that's part of that toxic corporate culture I was talking about before. Like, one thing, part of our core values that we did not want to do is have that same repeat where, you know, like, it's just a shady place to be in, right? So, like, our guys, they hang out after work. They're like a legitimate clique, right? You know, so personality and being able to actually fit into the team dynamic and, you know, into our core values and making sure that, you know, it's going to work no matter what, because you spend freaking 8 or 9 hours a day here. That's one of the most instrumental things. Having continuous sales training, right? Making something as simple as an audible account for your team, right? You can create one that has 4 for, you know, iPad, for iPhone, 4 for Android, and listening to, like, you know, Never Split the Difference or whatever books that will help you move the needle. Yeah. Going over that chapter by chapter, you know, like every week, it helps to move the needle. Even our deal analyst, like, you know, getting him on to sales training as well. All those things make a difference. So the one thing that's very interesting, and I think relates to a lot of what we've, you know, talked about in the past, is how do certain companies go from, you know, they kind of break through a threshold and certain companies do not. So there's a crazy article I read about the CEO of Infusionsoft, right? Because the guy sees everything behind the screen, right? He sees companies go vertical and he sees companies go completely, you know, implode. And then he did like a test, right? He kind of did a control test with different companies that he saw go either direction. And talking to CEOs, the founders, what he discovered unequivocally, the one reason where companies after 2 or 3 years, where they continued to go vertical, was self-development, that they had a version of personal growth, self-development. The founders, the managers, whoever was in the company, the leadership was invested in it. And that model trickled down through their team. They pushed that. And that was like, literally, it was an eye-opening moment for him and for me, and when I read it too, but it makes sense. If you instill that in your culture, it has that something nobody else can take away. People will stay there and work with you, even if you get offered, double the pay somewhere else, because it's an intangible, right? They feel good about being there, and you help them become better professionally and personally. So for us, it's absolutely massive.
I love that. I love that. You know what? That's good enough. Let's end it there, because that's awesome. That's awesome advice, and it's awesome, very applicable. Guys, this was great. I cannot thank you enough. If people want to reach out to you guys, I know you guys are in the Tampa market, but got a lot of things going on. I know you've got the new launch control coming out, the new software. If people want to reach out to you and hook up with you guys, what's the easiest way?
Yes, so we're very anti-social, but we'll be doing that. There's a reason for it, but anyway. So our company name is.
I just want to make sure. At the exact point that I told people to reach out to you, your comment back was, "We're anti-social." Probably not the best close I've ever heard. Probably not the best close I've ever heard.
We're not big on social media.
There you go.
On our roadmap for 2019, right? That's what I meant. But yeah, so our email is probably the best way. So it's Aaron or Ashley at Bay Capital Holdings. Our consumer-facing company is Ashley Buys Houses. That's the one where we have on TV. It's all over if you search that. And then Launch Control, it's launchcontrol.us. That's the new platform we have. And again, we've been killing it on text messaging with that, but it's been the most consistent version of it. But
since day one,
we'll be very heavy in social media before this year ends.
So you're officially going to be anti-social social media.
Yeah, correct. We're gonna pivot. We're gonna do the whole power couple thing, right?
All right, guys, I appreciate you. This has been awesome, man. I'm glad. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
See ya.
See ya.
Peace.